Hi and welcome to College Credit Coach. My name is Tammy and I'm your host for this video. I'm here with my son Jonathan, and today we're going to talk about the biology CLEP test. And if you don't know what a CLEP test is, it's college level exam program. And if you study a subject really well, you take these tests, then you can earn college credits without ever having to take a course if you get a certain score. And so we're going to talk about the biology CLEP test today. Jonathan is my third child to take the biology CLEP test, so it's our third time taking it, and we continue to learn more and more. My biggest thing was tell you is that Jonathan is starting from like a ground zero knowledge of biology, okay? He's taken environmental science and astronomy, and then we're always reading about science in between everything. But in our homeschooling, we learn things once, we learn it really well, and then we move on to the next subject. So what I'm gonna tell you, or what we're gonna tell you, is kind of learning from no knowledge. Some people may have a basic knowledge and they might be able to skip ahead to some different things or different parts of studying for the CLEP test, but this is where we've begun. So my biggest thing that I would tell you is not to drag the biology CLEP test out too long to study for it. What I mean by that is we start our homeschooling in the end of August, beginning of September. And I would recommend that you have the majority of the biology information studied by the beginning of March, okay? Because otherwise it just drags out too long. And then in March, study specifically for the test, the CLEP test, for about 4 weeks, and then take the test. Now the way we do our homeschooling and do our schedule, our goal is to do 1 hour, I call it a modular schedule. Our goal is to do 1 hour of math in the morning, 2 hours of one subject, and then lunch, and then 2 hours of another subject. That's the goal, that's our ideal. Doesn't always happen. But with biology, what I would suggest is doing at least 4 hours a day. And so for like Jonathan, he did math and only biology. Okay, he didn't do two different subjects other than math. It was just math and biology.
Two main subjects, so a CLEP subject and then math generally is what we try to do.
Yep. And so by doing that, you're just able to focus better. So biology and chemistry are the only two that we really that we do that with. Otherwise, like when he took his government test and his U.S. history test, it was math in the morning, 2 hours of government, and then lunch, and then 2 hours of U.S. history, or something like that, the generic. So just so you get the idea, kind of a modular format. Now you took the biology CLEP test, he's done with biology, he'll move on to chemistry. So that's kind of how we do that. Why don't you start out by just telling the people what the biology CLEP test is like the details, how many questions and things?
150 questions in 90 minutes. 15 questions in 90 minutes. We kind of figured out that if I do 40 questions every 30 minutes, then I have 5 minutes for review at the end. One thing that I learned early on in my practice test taking is that for me personally, I like to have a big head start. So I like to get 50 to 60 questions done in my first 30 minutes, because after about 30 minutes, I start getting tired, sleepy, and I go way slower. So
one thing we did realize too, and you have to realize when you're taking CLEP tests, and you'll get better at them as you take them, but don't get stuck on the first couple questions. Really push through the first couple questions, and remember, it's a whole test. So you may feel like the first 20 or 30 questions are terrible and you're not getting anywhere. Keep going, keep pushing, and get through the whole test. It's a whole test. So why don't you tell the people how many credits the biology test is worth then?
So the biology test is worth 6 credits, and it's definitely worth 6 credits worth of work.
Of study.
It's very hard.
Most college CLEP tests are only about 3, but this one is considered 6 college CLEP, 6 credits, and it's very much a great general education course to get done and out of the way before actually taking college courses.
One thing when you're taking college CLEPs is find out how you study. I personally love to read and watch stuff. I hate taking notes, so we just take screenshots. Find out how you study. Like I said, I get sleepy during tests. I also love to have a huge head start for tests before I start getting sleepy and start slowing down. So find out how you take tests best. Take tons of practice tests, feel confident, really know your stuff.
Yep. And like he said, he does not like to write, so we did a lot of screenshots of things, and then he would draw out details on the paper that would help him to remember things. So why don't you tell us the curriculum that we actually used to do the base foundation of the information for biology?
Yeah, we use the Apologia Exploring Creation with Biology 3rd edition book. It was good. It was a great basic level. So I would say try, if you're starting end of August, beginning of September, try to go September through end of January with this book. Try to go, I don't do the calculations, but 4 to 5 months. It's a very foundation level. Everything in the book is covered on the test, but it's a very foundation level. Everything that's covered on the test is in a more advanced version of this.
Yep. And we'll tell you first what we did, and then we'll tell you at the end what we think we should have done, or what we'll have maybe Leah, the 4th child, do. So you did biology, and then you did modern states.
Then I did modern states. I thought modern states was just totally crazy because none of the questions made sense. But I realized afterward that this is just a basic book. I thought it was just way too advanced. So I would definitely, after you read the book and you're done with this, either do Modern States or Khan Academy. Both are good resources right after this.
So what did you did? Let's just follow what you did first.
What?
You did Apology Biology, then Modern States.
Modern States.
Then you started Khan and you started Dive, and you kind of went back and forth. But you found that once you got in a rhythm, Dive actually had the best information.
Yes, very centered on the test. Almost all of Dive's information and his practice quest. It's a test, very accurate.
And when I say Dive, it's an online course that you can buy specifically for CLEP preparation, for biology CLEP preparation. And I'll put a link in the description box below, and also maybe do a screenshot here. It's Dive with Professor Shorman, and he has a lot of science and math CLEP prep videos that you can purchase. I think it was $60 or something like that. And you can use those again and again, I believe, for each kid. And so that's what we did. So you found the best information for actually preparing you for the actual CLEP test was on Dive. And then you did Khan, and Dive is just videos and some online quizzes. And then
some full-length time practice tests. Those were great.
Okay. And then Khan Academy, you watch all the videos. And when I say Khan, on your Khan, there's an AP Biology, AP/College Biology course. That's what he took. And you watch all the videos
all
there.
All the videos, none of the readings. I did all the quizzes. What we learned there with the quizzes was that I should be taking them till I get 100%. And if I'm not understanding something, look up either different Khan videos, because sometimes you'll find a really good one in like advanced health or something that's really belongs in the AP. And so Google that. But the first time I went through Khan, I was just taking them, and I didn't really care what score I got, so I just generally getting between 50 and 25 and 50% on them. So really bad.
So we went back through Khan Academy, and we made sure that he got nearly 100% on all the quizzes and all the tests.
That I understood.
And that he understood all the information to be prepared. Okay, so then if you could streamline and tell him again, we said we did Apology, Modern States, Dive, and Khan. If you would just streamline it and say, this is what I would tell my younger sister what to do next, how would you put it in order?
I would do this book.
Apologia.
By itself.
Biology.
I had done one problem when I went through this originally. If I wasn't understanding stuff, I also did all the Khan videos when I read this. Dumb, because I went back and did them again. So bad use of time. Only do this book when you're going through the first time. So this book, then I would do Modern States or Khan Academy. Either one, both would be great. And then I would do Dive as your final right before the test. It's 20 videos, each are about 30 minutes. So I started about a week before the test.
And he says dive at the end, because I asked him, like, well, why would you dive at the end when it was the most information, best information? Wouldn't you want to do that before, you did all the other things? And he said dive helped him right at the end to have all that information fresh in his mind before he took the test. So I get it.
If you wanted, you could probably do dive twice, do the book, dive, then modern states, then dive if you wanted to cut out con, but con is good. It's a visual. He draws everything on screen. I'm a visual learner, and so I still to this day remember the things from con better than I do from dive.
Right, because dive, I would say, is a lot of definitions, and it's not the drawings that con was. And I knew that he was getting what con was because that's his visual learner. But then dive had the best information. So between the two, they were really, really good. Okay, so then practice tests. You said you did dive practice tests and con practice tests and Peterson's. You did Peterson's.
Yes, I did Peterson's.
And tell us then a little bit about what you actually, the questions that you did for all those practice tests. Were they like the questions that were on the biology test, or what would you suggest to us to study or to pay attention to for the actual CLEP biology test?
So Peterson's has 2 tests. Both I would say are a easy-ish version, like definitely not harder than what you're gonna see they're on the easy end of the spectrum of what you're gonna see for your CLEP.
Okay.
I would say the easy questions are very close to Peterson's. The hard questions, which there was actually, it wasn't centered on the spectrum. The amount of questions was very much up high on the high complicated stuff. Dive was really great for that. I would do dive and Peterson's. Both practice tests are great. Peterson's, it was good to get used to the time. Yeah.
Okay, let's actually talk about advice for what kind of questions to expect too. So on con, I remember we saw a lot of graphs and a lot of like data sets that we had to analyze in order to answer some questions. Did you see those kind of questions on the CLEP test?
Yeah, so I was expecting, so in the end I would say, I know it sounds weird, but 25% of the questions were about, what is the powerhouse cell, mitochondria. And I'd say at least about 50% of the questions on the test were a script, like a little excerpt, a paragraph. Okay. You read it and then you answer the question like about something, maybe a study that was done, and the other 25 was a graph.
Okay.
And I'm bad at reading graphs.
Okay, so when we talked about the text that you were given, I know in practicing,
generally just a paragraph.
It was helpful to know the characteristics of different functioning organelles or different things, so that you could decipher and you could take the 4 options and you could kind of cross off this one, that one, that one, and then you'd be left with 1 or maybe 2, and then from the details in that you could go back and look at the paragraph and the question and decipher which one was the best option.
Yes, that is great. One of the things is that for most of the charts and all of the excerpts, it's based off of multiple questions. So you'll have the same excerpt for 4 questions or 2 questions or 3 questions. So I generally read it once.
Read the question once.
Read the
paragraph.
The excerpt once, question, answer that thing. Then if I was having trouble, generally I'd only read it once for all 4 questions or however many there was.
Yep.
Sometimes if it was super long, I would start by reading the bottom, like maybe if it's 2 paragraphs, I just read the bottom paragraph, because generally the top paragraph is explaining stuff and it's unneeded, I learned. So yeah.
And you say that you would skip some of that stuff just because of time, right? Really, you don't have time to read all of that. So just to pay attention to the time.
Mm-hmm. And I even, for time's sake, because I like to get off to big head starts, the first 10 questions, I literally just clicked A on all 10.
Oh, you did?
A. And then so I'm about 3 minutes in and I'm on question 11. Okay. And so that just felt good for me.
Okay. Do you go back and look at those first 10?
Yeah, so then I went back and actually went through those first 10.
Okay.
It might be a bad strategy too.
Maybe you don't want to do that.
Maybe you don't, but for me.
But then you're feeling like, okay, I'm getting through and I'm getting somewhere.
I'm getting through because the first 10 are always very hard for me. They seem to be very in depth.
Okay.
Lots of scripts, graphs. I mean, I do terrible on
That's kind of interesting way. I didn't suggest that to you, so I'm glad you came up with that yourself.
That's just, I've taken a lot of practice tests, and that's just what I find.
Okay, well, I think that's about all we have for biology. We would love for you to comment down below. Tell us your experiences in biology, maybe what things were helpful for you to study, and if you've got any tips or anything. And we thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.